Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Jason Statham! He is pretty hot. But yes, hello and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where on the eve of CinemaCon in Las Vegas, we're going to talk about it. Hollywood is barreling towards a meltdown, a reckoning, or maybe both. I think both. Because North American audiences, maybe they're finally making a meaningful shift to conservative, just like they have politically. It's still kind of 50-50, but it's having real repercussions in multiple spaces, it seems. Or maybe Hollywood's, or this is actually probably part of the whole storm, but Hollywood's usual content has hit rock bottom. Look at these cinema scores for the weekend's new releases. What are you doing, Hollywood? Oh my God. That's your report card? I'm not sticking that on the fridge. And I think that more conservative content is not only all that's left, but making the most of the opportunity. So let's discuss. Here are the headlines, but we're going to dig into all of them. So Snow White, in just its second weekend, with very weak competition, as you can see, couldn't even hold on to the number one spot, falling to second place with a 66% drop. That is so incredibly embarrassing. Meanwhile, Jason Statham's A Working Man in the Chosen's theatrical event rallied surprisingly well at the box office, representing conservative and middle American audiences, where, of course, there's overlap. Plus, it gets even crazier. This was quite the weekend for the conservative community or middle American community, because controversial to some, country music singer Morgan Wallen accidentally or intentionally dissed SNL and coastal elite Hollywood when he walked off during the end of Saturday Night Live. Oh, it was an accident. Was it? What do you think? And his appearance was a lightning rod itself on social media, with some saying they muted his musical performances while others saying they were the only good parts of the show. But you all tuned in, so I guess SNL, at the end of the day, will take it. But there's even more drama. CinemaCon starts tomorrow, and it might as well be airing on Bravo, hosted by Andy Cohen. What is CinemaCon? Well, CinemaCon has traditionally been a business event that's held every spring in Las Vegas. Now, what it was, and to some degree still is that studios get up on stage. It's going to be spotlighted on Apple's new show, The Studio, at the end of this season. Great episodes, by the way. I love The Studio overall. But, it's very telling that the Studio, instead of ending at Comic-Con, has chosen to end the season at CinemaCon, because it's that big an event within the industry. So the studios get up and they pitch their upcoming slates to the movie theater owners to not only, try and make sure they get the most screens, although some studios are very aggressive with their booking tactics. We're going to talk about how Disney handles that. But they want to get the most screens possible. They want to get space in theater lobbies for their standees, etc. So it's, really to try and get theater owners excited about the upcoming movies from the studios. But it's evolved. Over the past few years, while it's still very business-oriented, it has become a Comic-Con style headline-making event. A lot of drama there. Remember, that's where Jason Sudeikis accidentally or intentionally served Olivia Wilde papers on stage. Now, this year, I think the studios are aware. Not only are they aware how much attention is now being paid to CinemaCon, but they'll take every opportunity to try and get you to go to the theater. So they're going hardcore with their presentations. I'm sure also they want to make the theater owners a little less nervous, because it's real bad right now. So Warner Brothers and Universal in particular are rumored to be releasing some major trailers, most likely to the public as well as to attendees. But there's even more. As the studios get set to present, there's so much drama at the executive level at almost all of the studios. They're all having problems, but here are the two big, really gossipy, juicy stories as we head into the CinemaCon event. So, Amazon MGM's Jennifer Salk just stepped down as their head of film and TV content, with rumors swirling it was because Barbara Broccoli hated Salk so much that it required Jeff Bezos to give an additional $1 billion after already buying MGM to get 100% control of James Bond. Basically, Barbara Broccoli hated Jennifer Salk so much in their meetings, she didn't want anything to do with Amazon, so they had to buy Broccoli out. Then, For over a week, there's been buzz that David Zaslav is going to fire the co-heads of his film division that he just hired. But now, as Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who it's rumored are screaming at each other in their joint office, although they claim they're just spirited individuals from New York and New Jersey, which, it could be both. Again, it could be both. But while they scream at each other to get this presentation ready for the stage at Las Vegas, Bloomberg News says that Zazie is already interviewing potential replacements for them. That's going to be pretty awkward when they get out on that stage. If they get out on that stage. I think they have to. But that's really embarrassing. Be sure to stay tuned all this coming week for my CinemaCon coverage. Not just trailers, but all the drama. Now let's head back to the box office. So yes, even with Disney's super aggressive theater booking policy, they're very aggressive. They demand all the premium screens or as many showtimes as they can get. You have to have their movies in the biggest theaters in your house, or they will not give it to you, or will withhold other movies. It's very well known that they're super aggressive when they book theaters. And that's likely why no big movie tried to counter-program the week of Snow White or this following weekend. But yet, even still, Snow White couldn't hold on to that number one spot. But I want to talk about this. Why are Warfare, The Amateur, and Drop all opening the weekend of April 11th? That is so stupid. Why did one of them move up to this weekend? Despite Disney's aggressive policies, they couldn't hold on to at least some of their Dolby showings in the evening because Snow White just isn't performing well enough, and theaters are like, I'm playing to empty houses, man. I'm putting Death of a Unicorn in there, which was still pretty empty. But anyway, why didn't one of these movies move? I mean, the way things are right now, the weekend of April 11th, they're stuck splitting Dolby screens, speaking of Dolby, 3 ways that weekend. You've got Warfare at 5 p.m., The Amateur at 7:30, and then Drop at 10:30. That's their only Dolby showings. That's it. The Drop only plays at 10:30 at night in Dolby? That is ridiculous. And Disney, again, with these aggressive tactics, you might be like, well, what about the IMAX screen, Grace? Well, Disney locked that down for The Amateur. They lost one prime showing at around 7 o'clock every day for the John and Yoko documentary. But otherwise, IMAX is taken up by The Amateur. You want to see Warfare in IMAX, which is being billed as an amazing experience, particularly in IMAX. A24 is pushing it in IMAX. Well, they have some early screenings Wednesday before these other movies open, but otherwise, good luck. For instance, here in New York City, Warfare is only playing on one IMAX screen in the city, and that's on 42nd Street. That's just absolutely absurd. Warner Brothers Minecraft is taking over all premium screens, Dolby and IMAX, this coming weekend. And then you have this whole 3-movie debacle. And then Warner Brothers takes the premium screens back April 18th for Sinners. And the Ryan Coogler film, in 70mm, by the way, seems to have IMAX screens locked down. At the very least, I'm not sure about Dolby, but until Thunderbolts hits May 2nd. I know some of you aren't that big into premium screens. I've asked in the past, do you like premium screens? And some of you are like, Grace, I ain't fancy. The regular screen is just fine. But I think it makes a big difference for a lot of people, particularly when you have things like AMC A-List, where there's no additional charge to see a movie in a premium format. I think with people having such great home theater setups these days, particularly after the pandemic made everyone build them out, I think premium screens are often what are the final straw that push people to pay and take the time to go to the theater instead of just waiting for these movies to hit their home theaters. How long is it going to take for movie theater companies who are investing a lot of money into the theaters, but I think really key is adding more IMAX and Dolby screens, and IMAX and Dolby have to participate in that as well. When's this going to happen? All right, what's your attitude towards premium screens? So, after its second weekend, Snow White has now reached 143 million global. Whew! Because remember, with the budget it's saddled with, the rule is 2.5 times the budget to break even. It needs to hit 675. Again, that's just to break even, not to make a profit. Whew! Disney claims Disney's like, whoa, we got a couple of weeks of spring break left to go, and Minecraft, they think, is going to lean male. But I mean, what exactly do they think is going to happen here? It's looking so bad. It's pretty clear, I think, that Snow White is dead. And since it's upset every possible group that it could, I don't think there's anyone left who loves the movie enough to wake it up. Maybe Prince Charming could be Disney Plus down the line, but I think that's also extremely unlikely. Now, ironically, just as Jennifer Salk she leaves Amazon MGM, the company, by the way, announced they will not be replacing her. They had a weird hierarchy, right? So Jennifer Salk was very coveted when they brought her on board, when Amazon acquired MGM. And so it went like Mike Hopkins, who was the head of the whole studio, Jennifer Salk below him, and then the two divisions, movies and TV, reported to her, and she reported to Mike. And Mike's like, why is there a middle person between me and my two divisions? So he's not replacing her, and now the two divisions will report directly to Mike. But you know what? I gotta say, to Jennifer Salk's credit, while Barbara Broccoli might have hated her, she did a pretty good job with Amazon. Look how it's doing this weekend. And on streaming, by the way, when we head over to Nielsen in a few minutes, Reacher Season 3 is number 1. It's the number 1 show. And Prime Video has a lot of really great shows that are doing very well. It's very competitive in the streaming space. Now, in the movie space, it looks like Amazon MGM is on track to repeat their Beekeeper's success. By the way, A Working Man is based on a book by Chuck Dixon. Remember him? He used to be a huge comic book writer, so I'm very happy for him to have this success. And it just goes to show Hollywood shouldn't be so quick to throw comic book writers in the garbage while using the source material that said comic book writers made famous. I'm just saying. All right, so just like The Beekeeper, A Working Man is from Jason Statham and David Ayer. Although now joining the team is Mr. Sylvester Stallone. Very interesting to see Sylvester Stallone, who's still on camera with stuff like Tulsa King, and he still makes some movies himself, but he's now starting to, work behind the scenes a little bit, just work behind the scenes, here being a writer. And over the past couple of years, he's leaned more and more conservative. In fact, he was even named, as you might recall, one of Trump's Hollywood ambassadors. Another Hollywood ambassador, Mr. Mel Gibson, is gearing up to finally shoot his Passion of the Christ sequel this summer in Rome. It was just announced. And here's something that's going to make you think. Gibson's Passion of the Christ 2 and Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, both old school, auteur-driven epics that I think have significant male appeal, although I think they'll appeal to everybody, but they're very bro-centric, I feel. They both come out in 2026. That's going to be very interesting. All right, so speaking of faith-based content, The Chosen continues to build momentum. Perhaps, do you watch The Chosen? This is kind of making me want to check it out. Perhaps the next big conservative franchise that can jump to the mainstream. The Chosen is from Dallas Jenkins, who might be the new Taylor Sheridan. I think we all should know Dallas Jenkins' name at this point. The Chosen, The Last Supper, so Hollywood, I love the title, is its season 5, and it's hitting theaters in 3 parts, as previous seasons have. We've seen The Chosen in the top 10 before, but never like this. This is amazing. It came out this weekend, then part 2 comes out against Minecraft the following weekend, this coming weekend, and then against War for Amateur and the Amateur and the Drop. That's the final part, April 11th. It's doing serious box office, which makes it a threat to all those other films. And it ain't on no premium screens either. Jesus doesn't need a premium screen. And then after this theatrical release, the entire season will become available on Prime Video in June. In fact, Amazon's deal is with Jenkins himself, like Paramount has a deal with Taylor Sheridan. And Prime Video gets not only the streaming rights to all 5 seasons of The Chosen, but will also have a reality show spin-off of The Chosen. Barbara Broccoli, Jesus isn't too big for a spin-off show, I'm just saying. So The Chosen will have a spin-off, kind of unscripted show with UK wildlife personality Bear Grylls. I'm real curious to see how that one is explained. All right, so did you see A Working Man or The Chosen this weekend? And if you did you just go because they looked good, or did it also help that they align with your faith and or personal outlook? Very interesting. And on the flip side, if you're not conservative or religious, why aren't you seeing the other movies that are out right now? Methinks it's because they're crap, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. The scores for these movies are awful. Even for a horror film, a C- is really bad. Usually it's a C+. But it's not like liberals don't have some stuff to entertain them. For instance, the re-release of Princess Mononoke did very nicely this weekend, as you can see. And I love this conversation. This is fascinating. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. It might have gotten a surprise boost from the latest internet guilty pleasure, using AI to transform whatever you want to the style of Studio Ghibli animation, from your own photos to someone even did The Lord of the Rings. So yes, while many lamented the death of art over the past few days, was this an accidental organic ad campaign for this re-release? I'm sure that Hollywood and other companies took note. Because there's been chatter that I've mentioned to you before. I haven't heard anything about this situation, but I've heard that other seemingly organic campaigns that came out of nowhere, or let's say trends, were actually carefully orchestrated by PR companies. So I think that a number of people, another number of companies for numerous industries, but particularly Hollywood, would see what happened over the past couple of days and say, hey, maybe we could do an AI style in our show. Like even Minecraft could have done this, right? Minecraft might be too late for Minecraft, but to correlate with the release of their project. What if Barbie had this element? I mean, Barbie already did amazing. Or like just, you could think of all these things that could suddenly, you could be part of that and maybe it would build up hype. Everybody has very, very strong, or maybe you don't, but most people have pretty strong feelings about this. But what do you think of this use of AI? Speaking of what liberals are watching, look at the White Lotus go. It's on the overall chart. You're looking at the overall chart. This is incredible. Not only is this very exciting for the Mike White anthology series itself, but it's proof that when an HBO show is really cooking, even if it has to split its audience with Max, and the Max numbers are what's counted here, not the HBO. Is anyone in North America still watching HBO instead of going through Max? But it can make the Nielsen overall charts. That just goes to show that excuses. Whichever Max shows can't make these charts, just simply doesn't. Those shows just don't have the fire. Although, to be fair, The White Lotus isn't its third season, so it's getting a little bit of a boost from people who are catching up to the party watching the first two seasons. But I think it's largely people watching season 3. This is just very impressive. And there was a lot of debate as to whether or not Mike White might have gone too far with some of the storylines this season, but it seems he's just right. As he's not only getting the show to trend on social media when it airs, it was number 1 when it aired last week on Sunday nights. There's another episode tonight. I've seen this one, but they're not giving out the final episode in advance to press, so it's got to be pretty amazing. But it has now the views to go along with the chatter. Some shows are social media darlings, but they can't get on the Nielsen charts. A lot of Disney Plus shows have that problem. Not the White Lotus. It's got it all. There's Reacher Season 3, as I said at the top, and also Running Point is finally hitting Nielsen's charts, and we already know that it did very well based on Netflix's charts, which are, of course, more current. And people really love Venom, as Sony's streaming deal with Netflix, because again, they don't have their own streaming service, continues to be a great deal for both of them. Over on the originals chart, speaking of Taylor Sheridan, season 2 of his 1923 show is off to a great start here with its debut. Plus, Severance and Paradise are still hanging on to the originals chart. Paradise is almost done here. This is its second to last episode, so maybe next week we'll see a binge surge, a binge jump where it's the end of the show and people who are waiting to get on the binge train get on. But Severance, we're not going to see a surge for that for a little bit because this is just episode 7 of 10. Nielsen, so far behind. All right, over on the movies chart, Netflix blew up another flop, getting people to finally discover the amazing Dungeons and Dragons movie. Hooray! I wonder if that'll help with the situation. They're bringing back Dungeons and Dragons. They're going to try again. But I'm glad that some people are watching finally that movie. I mean, did you watch it now that it's on Netflix? So speaking of Netflix, now let's take a look at their charts. With movies, while The Electric State didn't grow significantly in its first full week on Netflix, last week it was pretty bad, but it was only for the first 3 days because Netflix movies drop like on, Friday at 3 a.m., right? Pacific though. So that's just 3 days on the chart. But this is where Electric State was available for an entire week. And it didn't fall in viewership, but it just held steady. It's a big embarrassing flop for everyone involved, including the Russo brothers. But wow, Netflix is getting a number of recent theatrical releases back on the service. They lost them for a while there when everybody was like, all the studios were like, I'm putting my movies on my own service. But look, they're heading back to Netflix and they're doing well. Look at Craven. I'm so glad. Speaking of Netflix helping movies that didn't do well, I'm glad to see Craven getting some love as well. Did you watch Craven now that it's on Netflix? With shows, Adolescence, this is great. Adolescence has exploded in its first full week. Truly Netflix's new baby reindeer. I've now watched all 4 episodes. I think it's very good. I think episode 1 is by far the strongest, which is great. It hooks you right from the beginning. And I think a lot of the commentary I felt was a bit too subtle, but the more I think about it, I think that might be the point, because it really leaves it open to interpretation. You're like, what are you trying to say? And I think that creates a lot of conversation. It might actually be brilliant to be a little ambiguous in the commentary. Some people think they know what it's saying. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I think it's going to be a very strong awards contender. It's also doing huge viewership in the UK, where it made headlines as the first streaming show to ever top the weekly UK viewership charts. Stephen Graham has been a working actor for a very long time. He's in Venom. He's done a lot, but I think we're watching his career finally level up in a major way to the big leagues. That's very exciting to see. I think you might be seeing him say some award speeches, next award season. But speaking of politics, this show has been a lightning rod, angering many conservatives, even some of the most vocal. But a hit is a hit is a hit. And you don't have viewership numbers like these, without a broad audience. Everybody's tuning into this show. These are incredible numbers. I'm also thrilled to see The Residents doing well. Fantastic show from Shonda Rhimes. I just bought the book that it's based on, about the history of the White House. They turned it into a murder mystery for the show, but I'm really enjoying it. It's very long. It's got like so many episodes. I'm about halfway through. They sent me my hacks screener, so I'm taking a hacks break. But anyway, look at the difference in viewership. 42 million views for Adolescence compared to 6.4 for The Residents. Adolescence is just taking up all the air in the room, for sure. And a little lower down, you can see Netflix has a smaller, but still a hit for animation with Wolf King Season 1, based on also a popular book, in this case, a popular book series. This is also out of the UK from Jellyfish Pictures. Remember this animation house? We were just recently talking about them for doing a lot of the animation on Dogman, and they do a lot of animation on a number of DreamWorks projects. But this is right out of their studio, and they have their own hit. That's pretty cool. All right, now let's look at digital. We're looking at Apple, Apple's charts. Their big sale on collections continues to do very well, dominating the top 10 here, as you can see. Sales are helping them with a lot of stuff, even individual films. A lot of these films that you see back on the chart are surging again. It's because they're on sale. Plus, there's direct-to-digital movie Riff Raff with a very strong cast, very strong. But apparently Lionsgate just couldn't take any more embarrassment at the box office and sent it to digital. All right, so what's coming out this next week? Theatrically on Friday, Warner Brothers is going to try and turn its fortunes around with Minecraft. Is it another Super Mario Brothers, or maybe another Jumanji? The press screening was actually this morning, which is why Movie Math went up a little bit later today. And I gotta say, I couldn't believe it. I had a great time. I laughed really hard at this movie. The review embargo lifts Wednesday, although the social media embargo is lifted, which is why I can say that. But I have to say, audiences are so jaded right now and so upset with Hollywood. We'll see if Jack Black and Jason Momoa, who make a hilarious duo, by the way, I love them together, if they can turn those frowns upside down. We'll see. I think there's still a big question mark hanging over the film. And Bill Murray has yet, if you check ticket sales for the Minecraft, those theaters are empty. But maybe the walk-up business will be strong. And Bill Murray has yet another movie, this time The Friend, which will play in theaters with Naomi Watts. Freaky Tales and Screamboat are also opening, but with very limited show times. They have pretty good distribution, but only like 2 show times a day. Also, Disney is having an early sneak peek of The Amateur on Saturday night. On digital, Paddington in Peru and Opus are set to drop Tuesday, but sometimes these things change. The Monkey, which was supposed to hit digital last Tuesday, is now hitting digital Friday, along with Zachary Levi's latest film. Whatever happened to Mickey 17? Well, that's now supposedly set for Tuesday, April 8th. Maybe everybody was complaining about rushing it to digital, so Warner Brothers was like, okay. Although, Warner Brothers, you just got to make money, We'll see. So Tuesday, April 8th now is supposedly Mickey 17. Then with shows, season 14, that's an incredible run of Call the Midwife starts tonight on PBS. While on Thursday, Netflix has 2 new shows, anime Devil May Cry based on the video game, and Pulse, a medical drama set during a hurricane. Sound familiar? That's because a couple of years ago, Apple TV already had 5 Days at Memorial based on the real-life situation with Hurricane Katrina. Crazy overlap. More people are watching Apple TV these days, but that's still nuts that Netflix would basically redo that show. That's nuts. All right, also on Thursday, Prime Video has a new horror series from Jason Blum, The Bondsman, with Kevin Bacon. All right, and that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And again, how the heck is Hollywood going to get things back on track? And if you're not watching movies, what are you doing? Are you watching shows? Are you playing video games? Are you going outside? Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.